والصلاة والسلام على السراج المنير البشير النذير محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Brothers in Islam, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the exalted, the glorious, the majestic, the one who turns night into day and transforms the day into night. We ask Allah to bless the best of His creation, our Master, our Habib Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who has commanded us to be upright. We ask Allah to bless him and to bless each and every one of us who lead a righteous life. Dearest brothers in Islam, alhamdulillah, at the blink of an eye, the majority of the month of Ramadan, the major portion of the month of Ramadan has passed. When the moon for the month of Ramadan was sighted, a caller called out, as we all know, multiple times this is mentioned. An angel calls out and he says, يَا بَاغِيَ الْخَيْرِ أَقْبِلْ وَيَا بَاغِيَ الشَّرِّ أَقْصِرْ وَلِلَّهِ عُتَقَاءُ مِنَ النَّارِ فِي كُلِّ لَيْلَةٍ مِنْ لَيَالِي رَمَضَانَ. O seeker of good, come forth, engage in ibadah, engage in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, engage in mending your old ways. O seeker of evil, restrict yourself. Enough is enough. Turn over a new leaf. You need to make a change into your life. You need to make amends. Come, turn to Allah. Allah is the most forgiving. And thereafter, the same hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, وَلِلَّهِ عُتَقَاءُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Every night from the night of the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala frees people from the fire of Jahannam, from the burning inferno of Jahannam. What is your story? What is your story and what is my status? Have we attained the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If we haven't, let me give you the glad tidings today. It's not too late. It's not too late. The other day, I was giving a talk after Tarawih Salah at one of the masajid in Colombo. A brother comes to me, he says, Allahu Akbar, brother, you spoke about tawbah. My sins, I don't know if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept tawbah. Then he tells me, I am a gem merchant, but I always also was involved in dealing with substances, with drugs. Will Allah accept my tawbah? My response to him was clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept your tawbah, but you need to mend your old ways. You need to regret the sin you've been committing. You need to turn to Allah in repentance and promise to Allah that you will never go back to this evil sin. This is the way tawbah is made. And if we don't make tawbah in this month, when are we going to turn back to Allah? We all know the hadith. Jibreel alayhi salam climbs the mimbar. The first step of the mimbar he climbs, he says, Ameen. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum are flabbergasted. They are shocked. They ask, Ya Rasulullah, why did you say Ameen? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam informed them, the Archangel Jibreel, he came to me and he made dua against three groups of people. The first group was who? He was the one who attains the month of Ramadan, but does not attain the forgiveness of Allah. He does not attain the freedom from the hellfire. He miserably fails to utilize and maximize the month of Ramadan for his benefit. Are you and I the people whom Jibreel alayhi salam has made dua against and cursed? Or are we the forgiven slaves of Allah? So the forgiveness of Allah is paramount, is of paramount importance. And along with that, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stipulated fasting for us so that we inculcate taqwa into our lives. Like He says in the Quran, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. He has prescribed fasting upon us so that we become people who are conscious of Him, so that we adopt a life of taqwa, so that we inculcate taqwa into our lives. And some people think taqwa is only restricted to myself. If I am a muttaqi, if I have inculcated consciousness of Allah, that is sufficient. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Noble Quran, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ نَارًا. Today when we travel by air, The air crew, they suggest to us, if there is any turbulence, you take the oxygen mask, put it on yourself, and then go looking for your family. But don't leave your family. Don't abandon your family. Perhaps they have derived inspiration from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, protect yourself and protect your family from the burning in front of Jahannam." Today, we pray in the first saf. We come on time for Tarawih. Qiyamul Layl, we are there. In Qunut, we cry. But what is the status of our families? Is my daughter, is my wife, are the women folk at home adopting hijab as it should be adopted? Is it difficult for me to ask my children to go and pray? Is prayer a difficult, heavy chore for my children? If this is the case, we need to look into our homes and also bring in this sifa, this quality of taqwa into our homes. And along with taqwa, today we are in the last few days of Ramadan. The Prophet ﷺ, along with taqwa, he mentions another attribute that will be a leading cause for your entry into Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ says, أكثر ما يدخل الناس الجنة تقوى الله وحسن الخلق. The two most major elements, major factors that will lead to your entry into Jannah. Number one, taqwa Allah, the consciousness of Allah. Number two, a missing element in our societies today. Even I myself might be guilty. The second element is husnul khuluq. Having good morals, having good characteristics, having a good moral compass that leads you to pleasing others and not hurting others. The Prophet ﷺ also says, إِنَّ الْمُؤْمِنَ لَيُدْرِكُ بِحُسْنِ خُلُقِهِ دَرَجَةَ الصَّائِمِ الْقَائِمِ. Today, we fast. Fasting is tough. We engage in qiyamul layl. We engage in spending the night in ibadah. Let me inform you about something that if you inculcate into your life, it will make you a person who attains the level of a person who constantly fasts and constantly stands in prayer. What is this? The Prophet ﷺ says, it is husnul khuluq. Husnul khuluq, having good akhlaq, having good morals, having good characteristics. With regard to the Prophet ﷺ himself, what does Aisha radiallahu anha say? ما كان أحد أحسن خلقا من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. There was no one you could find in Medina who had better moral characteristics than the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. ما دعاه أحد من أصحابه ولا من أهل بيته إلا قال لبيك. If someone called to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم for some help, if one of his family members was distressed and he called for the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, what would he say? He wouldn't say, no, I'm busy, let me attend to you a little later. Like we hang up on the calls, like we ignore the calls of certain people who call us when in distress. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said, Labbaik, I am at your service. I am at your service. This was the tarbiyah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Noble Quran, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Oh, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you are someone who has been created with utmost amazing moral character. So what should you do? خُذِ الْعَفْوَ, choose forgiveness, leave the revenge. Choose forgiveness, وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ, and command good, وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ, and turn away from the ignorant ones who constantly come and keep arguing with you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were harsh-hearted, if you were rude, we made you soft-hearted, we made you welcoming. But if you were harsh-hearted, if you were rude, they would never have come close to you, Ya Rasulullah. They would have abandoned you long time back. The Sahaba would have abandoned you long time back. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ta'ala made the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam welcoming. He made him soft-hearted so that the Sahaba's hearts softened and they embraced Islam. And let me narrate to you a testimony, a narration which is a testimony that bears testimony about the good conduct and upright morals of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they returned to Medina after an expedition, the expedition of Abdul. The caravan is passing by. They are heading towards Medina. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is at the back, being the leader of the army. He needs to look into certain affairs. And behind the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a young Sahabi, Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam notices him and he asks, "Oh Jabir, what happened? Why are you so slow?" Jabir radiallahu anhu replies, "Abta'ani jamali hada. Abta'ani jamali hada. This camel of mine has made me delay. It has made me slow." The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he sees he's a young Sahabi. I should do something for him. He asks Jabir radiallahu anhu, "Make your camel kneel down. Make your camel kneel." The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself also kneels down. And he asks for a stick. He takes the stick, gives the camel a few taps. Gives the camel a few taps. And the camel spurs up and it starts running. The camel spurs up and starts running. This is one of the miracles of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What happens next? Now Jabir radiallahu anhu, who was at the end, now he starts passing by other camels. He starts overtaking other camels and he goes towards Medina. But the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is also with him. Now the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with the young Sahabi, he starts a conversation. And at the end of this conversation, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Oh Jabir, why don't you sell your camel to me? Why don't you sell your camel to me?" Jabir radiallahu anhu, he was conversing with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, "No, Ya Rasulullah, I'm not going to sell you. You take as a gift." The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam deep down knew the financial difficulty Jabir radiallahu anhu was facing. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "No, Ya Jabir, I can't take it as a gift. You sell it to me. You quote your price." He says, "No, Ya Rasulullah, you quote your price." The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, "Bidirhamin, can you sell it to me for 1 dirham?" Jabir radiallahu anhu, he says, this camel, after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself made it spur, it has become a valuable asset. How can I give it to you for 1 dirham, Ya Rasulullah? If I give it to you for 1 dirham, it would be like you are cheating me. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then says, 2 dirhams. Jabir radiallahu anhu says, no. He keeps on increasing. Now he reaches a level of uqiyah, a significant amount of gold. Now he says, "Okay, Ya Rasulullah, if you are pleased with that amount, let's fix this amount. Now time comes to enter Medina. Before Jabir radiallahu anhu leaves, he seems to be in a hurry. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asks, "Oh Jabir, why are you in a hurry?" He says, "Ya Rasulullah, I came with you into this expedition, but I have been recently married, Ya Rasulullah. My wife is waiting at home, Ya Rasulullah. I need to rush to her, Ya Rasulullah." The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, knowing that he was a very young Sahabi, he asks, "Have you married a woman who was already married, or have you married a young woman who was never married before?" Jabir radiallahu anhu says, "I have married a mature woman who was already married." But the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells him, "Oh Jabir, you are a youngster. If you had married a young woman, it would have been better for you. You could have played with her, she would play with you, you would have a romantic lifestyle." Jabir radiallahu anhu looked at the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, how sincere, how empathetic, how hands-on they were. Jabir radiallahu anhu, he says, "My father, he was martyred in the battle of Uhud, and he left with me 4 sisters. If I was to marry a young woman, she too would mix with my sisters and start playing with them and start creating misunderstanding and hell. That is why I chose to marry. I sacrificed my romantic life, my intimate life, and I married a mature woman. A mature woman who would take care of my sisters. The Prophet ﷺ then says that it is good for you, O Jabir. Go on, carry on. Go to your wife is waiting. Now the next day, the Prophet ﷺ is in the masjid. Jabir radiallahu anhu comes to hand over the camel. By the way, the Prophet ﷺ now knows the situation of Jabir radiallahu anhu. He knows the situation deep down. 5 sisters, 1 mature wife. He has to support them and earn for them. Jabir radiallahu anhu brings the camel. The Prophet ﷺ asks, whose camel is that? Bilal radiallahu anhu, he says, Jabir has left the camel for you, Ya Rasulullah. The Prophet ﷺ then says, call Jabir. Call, I need to speak with him. These were the leaders, Ya Allah. These were the leaders. This was the Prophet ﷺ. How empathetic, how selfless. There is no iota of selfishness in him. What does the Prophet ﷺ say? He uses his moral compass and he said, O Jabir, keep the camel and the price is also for you. Keep the camel and keep the uqiyah, the gold. It is for you, you can enjoy. Jabir radiallahu anhu, he takes it and he merely goes. The moral of the story, the Prophet ﷺ put his Sahaba first. Today, most of us sitting here, we might be in an authority. We might be an authority ourselves. We might be an influential state. How do we treat our subordinates, our employees? Do we look into their small issues like the Prophet ﷺ did? Our teachers, dear teachers sitting in this masjid, how do you treat your students? Do you look into the small petty affairs of the students? If you don't, we need to start doing so. Because when we treat others the way we wish to be treated, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to grant us assistance and help. So, the gist of this short khutbah, husnul khuluq, the moral compass and good characteristics are something that will lead you to Jannah without a speck of a doubt. A person may perform the salawat he wants, the du'as he wants, he may supplicate to Allah, but without husnul khuluq, it is difficult to enter Jannah. And my dear brothers in Islam, today is going to be the 26th night of Ramadan. Please do not abandon Ramadan after the 27th night. There is no explicit evidence that 27th night is it. It could be any of the last 10 nights, and it could be even the 29th or 30th night. Laylatul Qadr could fall on any of these nights. The 27th night has more chance, more likelihood, but do not abandon the other nights. And when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, the Sahaba were in chaos. They were somber, they were sad. Umar radiallahu anhu goes around with his sword. If any one of you tells that the Prophet ﷺ has passed away, I will chop his head. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu then comes and he says, if you were worshipping Muhammad, then know that Muhammad has passed, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ever living. He will always remain. Likewise, I state to you, my dear brothers, the month of Ramadan may pass, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ever living. He is the Almighty. He is the glorious. Worship Him and be truthful to Him. وصل اللهم وسلم على نبيك الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا عن الحمد لله رب العالمين.